Okay. Hello, I'm Frazer Dougherty, and I'm a B-25 pilot. And this idea came because it's the 50th anniversary of the formation of the Air Force, believe it or not. The Air Force was formed in 1947 after the war. That's a strange thing. I never knew that until the other day. But we had this idea of pulling together air crews. First it was pilots, because I'm a pilot, and then it got to be air crews, and then WASPs and WACs and CAP guys, Civil Aviation Patrol. Bill King, is Bill King here? No, Bill King hasn't shown up. He said, can I come? I was in the CAP, and I said, sure. Anyway, we're going to go around the room and introduce ourselves. It's an amazing number of people we've got here. We've got almost 40 people, so we're going to start right here with Walter. You pass it around. Keep it about there and pass it around.
My name is Walter Erschow. I was a bombardier and Ray missions together. So here's...
Pass it on.
I'm Ed Moritz, and he covered. We were the second bomb group, and we were there in 1944 and 45.
I'm Charlie Townsend, B-17 pilot, 15th Air Force, based in Foggia, Maine, Italy. My combat experience was rather short. I went down on mission number 6 and landed in western Bosnia.
I'm Edgar Pigeon, and I was in the 8th Air Force. I got shot down in the 3rd raid, and so I was back in the States by March 44.
122404883. I'm Dick Niles. I was a radio operator on B-25s primarily, but I also operated on C-47s, but I was a young kid on the block. I enlisted about 3 weeks after D-Day. Then Harry dropped the bomb in 45, and then I became on a flight duty with a whole bunch of pilots in Smoky Hill Army Air Base in Salina, Kansas with the 15th Air Force.
Wait, before David Charney gets it, let's go on the back row here. Were you in the Air Force?
I was in Marine Aviation. I was on the...
Give us your name.
Robert Schwartz. I was the captain on the general staff of the Air Command in Okinawa.
Okay, give it to...
Philip Green, B-29s. I was on the first Tokyo raid.
Were you?
29 Tokyo raid, yeah. And stationed on Saipan.
I'm Al Orchino. I flew at the airport quite a bit. We flew 20 missions, and I unfortunately was shot down on the 20th mission. Everything was packed for me to go home, but I didn't get there. I was in prison for 13 months in Germany.
Dave Charney. I was on B-17s and B-29s, and I was flight chief and flight engineer on the 29s.
My name's Joe Oppenheimer. I was in Air Transport Command up in Assam Valley, flying ammunition and fuel into Kunming and Chengdu for the General Chinoo's Air Force. And the name of our plane was the Assam Dragon.
I'm Percy Heath, second lieutenant, fighter pilot with the 332nd and 99th Pursuit Squadron in America.
Wait, let's go. We have a new arrival here, and we'll go. Just your name and what you did.
You mean name, rank, and horsepower? My name is Jarvis Collins. I'm a Navy ex-Navy crewman. I started the war in 1941 at Pearl Harbor, and spent the rest of my career in the Navy in the Pacific Ocean. And thank you for inviting me here. And I went to the old place. That's why I'm so late.
The old place. Boy, you are behind the times.
I'm Dan Harvey. I was a B-25 pilot in the Pacific, as I was, and I also was recalled to active duty during the Korean War, and I was aircraft commander on a C-46s out of Mitchell Field.
I'm Harold Dominy. I was serving the 6th Air Force, 1,700 hours of patrol time. I went overseas in an LB-30, flew B-17s and B-24s, basically.
I'm Harry McIntyre. I served in the 52nd Fighter Group, 4th Squadron in Italy, at the point where the spur sticks out into the Adriatic. I did 53 missions. Most of those were escorting bombers. And I see that there were several other people in the same area. And I didn't get over till fairly late, June 44, at the end of 44, and I went home shortly after VE Day.
Can everybody hear? Okay. We can't hear ourselves out here, Matt.
My name is Don Miller, U.S. Navy, retired, 1937 to 57. I retired as an aviation chief radio man. I flew in 19 different type aircraft, including dive bombers, patrol planes, PBYs, and so forth.
My name is Harding Isaacson. I was an armor gunner in the 8th Air Force, 467th Bomb Group. Flew my 30 missions in B-24s. Incidentally, the B-24 is the crate that the 17s came in.
Matt, don't forget. Let's move these, dolly these cameras around all over the place to get these guys, so you don't miss anything. Please, cameramen, don't stand still. Okay.
Thank you. My name is Edward Monteforti, and I was a bombardier with the 492nd Bomb Group flying out of England. And we got over there just before the invasion, and it didn't last too long.
My name is Jim McCrawson. I was in the 456th Heavy Bombardment Group, stationed in Italy. I flew 50 missions from February 1944 to July 19th, 1944.
I just want to say I'm not a woman, and and I was born in New York City, to make it clear that I'm American, and not in the Chinese-American composite wing where I flew in under Chinook in China, 14th Air Force. I flew P-40s and P-51s, and flew approximately 87 missions. Okay. I was shot down more times than the Japanese shot down me before. I have more times than I shot them down.
I'm Lee Hayes. I was a bombardier, and then because we couldn't get a job for me, I went back to pilot training. And I became a pilot, so I'm one of the Tuskegee Airmen.
I'm Fred Beyer from Sag Harbor, and I was stationed in Italy with the 376th Bomb Group. Flew 18 missions over Europe.
I'm John Sherry from Sag Harbor, and I was bombardier in a B-26 crew in the 9th Air Force and flew 65 missions both before and after D-Day.
I'm Bill Adam from Sag Harbor. I was in the U.S. Coast Guard flying out of Miami in PBMs and Catalinas.
I'm Gil Foster. I was in the 447th Heavy Bombardment Group, tail gunner on the B-17, Journey's End.
I'm Ernest Shiverstein, and I was in the 303rd Bomb Group in the 8th Air Force in England. And I was a flight engineer on the B-17, and we crashed on our third mission. We dusted ourselves up and went back to finish about 12 more missions.
I'm Morton Saber. I'm from East Hampton, and I flew co-pilot and then pilot in the 100th Bomb Group between April and September of 1944.
I'm Mario Cerisi, and I was in Kaneohe Bay when the war started, and was in the PBY squadron, VP-11. And I don't know, spent the 2.5 years in the Pacific, and then I was in Corpus Christi instructing in PBMs and other airplanes. But it started with PBYs, and it's still my great love.
I'm Perry Duryea. I was in the Pacific throughout in VR-2 and VR-10 as a plane commander in PBMs and PB-2Is. We did supports on all the landings, and with the PBMs and Ys took out the wounded.
1943, this gentleman next to me and I were aviation cadets, and we've been good buddies ever since, and we graduated from cadets. I became an instructor pilot in twin-engine flight school, and he went on, he'll tell you about him. And then I went to China, and first pilot on C-47s, I flew 77 missions under General Chenault.
I'm Arthur Lasker. I was a P-38 pilot. I flew what Eddie wanted to fly, and he went into twin-engine advance because he wanted to fly 38s. I went into single-engine advance, and I got P-38s. Anyway, I was in the Pacific, and I flew out of Nadzeb, New Guinea, and Mindoro in the Philippines, and Aishima off Okinawa, and then went up to occupied Japan and Fukuoka, which was not too far from Nagasaki.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Marty Gitlin. I was pleased to hear Mr. Corral, to my right, talk about VR squadrons, because those are Navy squadrons. Perry as well. Marty, of course. I spent time in the Western and Southwestern Pacific. I don't know how many missions I flew, but I considered my existence in the Marianas Chain on Saipan as a country club existence. Thank you.
I'm Ron Spencer. I was a B-24 navigator in the 8th Air Force, the 467th Bomb Group, wonderful bomb group. Flew 35 missions from about the middle of 44 into 45. Thank you.
I'm Bob Barnes. I was in the Troop Carrier Command, and I spent the whole war towing glider pilots all over the United States.
I'm Jim Hurd. I was in the old 10th Cavalry at first, back in the 30s, and received my commission there, and then went to the Air Corps at that time at Tuskegee. Finished there. I'm a command pilot. Flew both fighters, medium bombers, and transport aircraft.
My name is Charles Smith. I was a captain pilot in the 8th Air Force, 46 Bomb Group. We were one of those groups who flew half our missions in 24s and half in 17s, if anybody's interested in a hangar debate. And then went on to transition into 29s in the Pacific.
Ed Herman from Southampton. I joined the Army Air Corps in 1943, October of 1943. And it was an extended program where at first I had to go to CTD, and after that go through the basic courses. It took me 18 months, believe it or not, to graduate, and I thought I'd never get there. And I graduated from Selma, Craig Field, Selma, Alabama, single-engine fighter pilot.
My name is Ernest Scher. I was a nose gunner on a B-24, flying bombing missions over the Japanese positions in Indonesia, Pescadores, and Indochina, and returned before the war was over, preparing to go back again to complete the job.
We started with you, didn't we? Yes. Yeah. Yeah, you got anything more to say? Now the problem is, okay. Yeah. Hey. Hey, Bill King. Here's Bill King. Come on, Bill. Get a chair and come up here. Please. It's your turn. Here we are. Bill, you got a stool right here. Come on. Bill King is you got either a director's chair or a stool, Bill. Come on. You're the last guy. Bill helped start LTV. He was the chairman of the board, and the other, and I didn't know this until yesterday. He said, "Hey, can I join you?" I was in the CAP.
sir. Come on. Have mercy.
No, that's wonderful. Come on, who are you?
Briefly. William King, resident taxpayer, former junior birdman, 1942, soloed in a Ronca two-seater, and bravely thereafter in a Piper Cub, till middle 1943, when I washed out and went to the University of Florida, and have lived happily ever since on my memories of leaving the earth.
Okay, great. Now, let's get some excitement going here, and I don't quite know where to begin and how to begin. So somebody got a hot story that they want to tell us? And if so, we can start there, or we can start by rank. We don't want to do that, because, I don't know whether, I was in the Pacific, in New Guinea, and flew out of Nadzab. And the worst place that we ever flew was WWII, over at WWII. And we have a song that says, I want a wee-wee on WWII. And did you go over WWII? Did you? In your P-38s, yeah. And actually, until those guys came along in their P-38s, we often had no air cover whatsoever. And I guess, and Charlie Lindbergh came out. Were you there when he was there? He came out and taught everybody long-range cruise control on a P-38. But so now, who's got a? You have a story, I know. I was told you had a story.
I have many.
I'm going to hang on to this, because otherwise you'll never let go.
I don't know, because all these are very, very notable people. I'm sort of curious about, I escorted B-24s and B-25s. I'm curious about the 25 that had the 75 millimeter gun in it, the cannon.
Yeah.
And I swear to God, when we were escorting, they shot that thing off at the
The plane went backwards.
I swear it just seemed to literally stop. It was amazing, most amazing.
Well, the 75, I know about that. I never fired one, but we had, in our theater, we had 14 forward-firing 50 caliber machine guns. Can you imagine that? And we actually strafed and skip bombed. We never got over 50 feet, and we sat on a parachute. We never strapped it on. We just sat on it. So, but you had a humorous story that somebody told me about. Oh, about the wax. About the wax. About the wax.
About the prostitute.
No.
That's why I said I was born in Brooklyn. Most Chinese women are flat-chested. So I happened to be very fortunate and find this very voluptuous Chinese lady in the town we were staged out of. And as I was playing with her in bed, she suddenly sat up and laughed like hell. And she said, why do all you Americans like big tits? And the first time I felt accepted. It's the first time I was called an American. So that's all.
Okay, let's go across the room here. Ed, what have you got to tell us?
How do you top that?
I'm not going to hang on to this.
Okay, that never happened to me, unfortunately. There's a story that was interesting. One of the worst missions we ever flew was over Blackhammer. Those of you guys who were in Italy probably remember it well. But it was the biggest snafu I have ever seen in my life. There were bomb groups going in all directions, facing each other, away from each other, and flak of all colors, and fighters coming in from all. It was a nightmare. To make a long story, nothing happened to us. We ran out of gas and ended up at the little island of Vis. That's the whole story.
Okay. Anybody else got something? Here we are. We're going to hang on to it, because otherwise you may never sit back.
This gentleman just mentioned about the biggest snafu there ever was. We had a runner-up the first mission we bombed in Africa. We never took the shipping plugs out of the bombs nor put fuses in them.
James?
Yes. I have many stories to tell, but I think I need to do this because the HBO that has come out on the Tuskegee Airmen did not mention the fact that those people who really taught us to fly were the Tuskegee Institute personnel, not in the military. The contract was with them to teach us primary flying. And of course, they are very unhappy because they are never mentioned. And then the other thing that I always like to say is that after they finally accepted us to go to a combat, that for 3 months they never gave us an assignment whereby we could shoot down a German airplane. And they recommended that we be sent back to the States. And of course, it was approved all the way up to Hap Arnold. And then, of course, George Marshall stepped in and said, wait a minute, I want to hear more about this. After calling in General Davis, who was a colonel at that time, who told him that we can do anything anybody else can do. Once they were transferred to another unit, the first time they went out and encountered the German aircraft, they shot down 5 in the morning and 3 that afternoon. At the end of the war, we shot down 13 one day. The next day, we shot down 12, 25 in that period of time. And then, of course, the big escorts, escorting the bombers out of England. We never lost a one out of 200 escorts to enemy fighters. And that's the story that I wanted to give quickly on this program. Thank you.
Thank you, James. I have to tell you on top of that, that during the last year of the war, I was the aide and pilot to General Frank O'Driscoll Hunter, who was the commanding general of the 1st Air Force, and flew many times down to Godman Field where there were all kinds of things going on. And it was a very, of course, I didn't know what was going on. And really, I was just a captain and a pilot, and but it was an interesting time for me to have done that. So who else has got something? Okay, Percy. Show it, if you want to show something, show it like that, and the camera can show it like. Yes, it can. Yes, it can. Just yeah.
But that's the record of Tuskegee Airmen
yeah.
in this paper.
Right.
But
okay.
I have a very humorous story. It happened when I was flying P-47s, and of course we had the white instructors coming back from combat as our flight leaders, and they wanted us to show off in these strange field landings. And of course we had goggles, gas masks, or the oxygen mask, gloves. We were completely covered. So when we landed, we did one of those 360s and scooted in. He was very pleased, our flight leader. And we pulled up to the flight line, and this white sergeant, of course it was a strange field landing in Sumter, South Carolina. And we pulled up there, and he gave us the signals and cut off the motors and gave us the signal. I opened the canopy. He jumped up on the wing, pulled off my oxygen mask, and lifted the goggles. He almost fell off the wing. And he popped to and gave me a sharp salute. He says, "Excuse me, sir." He says, "I didn't know they had black, no, it wasn't black then. I didn't know they had colored pilots, sir." And I said, "Oh, yeah, we've been flying for several years now." And you know, I've explained it to him. But he said, "I didn't know we had colored boys flying," even though he called me lieutenant, you know. But it was in South Carolina, so what could you expect?
Okay, anybody else? Here we are. Get over to my corner over here.
You know, we all like to remember.
I'm supposed to hang on to this so you don't keep it forever.
Okay. Now, we all like to remember stories with happy endings. And fortunately, we're the ones who came back and can tell those stories. And the real heroes are the guys who never came back. But one of the last missions we were flying was off Aishima over to Kyushu, Japan. I was leading a flight, and a young boy by the name of Kennedy was taking off. He was tail end Charlie. And on takeoff, he lost one engine, and we were carrying 2 napalm bombs under our belly. And the kid hits the bomb release at the end of the runway, and it doesn't work. So he uses the manual release, and the bombs go off right at the end of the runway, and he goes in. There's no way he's going to fly with a single engine with the load of armament, weight, and everything else that we had. And he goes in. Normally you might pancake in, but the 38 had all the power and weight in the engine and the forward parts, so she went right down under, and he was underwater. And he pulls his canopy, and the canopy won't go up. So he's got to pull down the window, get out his shoulder straps, his seat belt, his parachute, everything, and wait until the cockpit fills up with water. He finally gets out of the thing and comes up and takes a breath of air, pulls his Mae West, and it doesn't work. Nothing worked. And that poor kid, but he was okay, and he came out of it great, and that's the important thing.
Well, actually, I thought that we really all should take a minute